You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Now, as a professional naturalist, I have a park that I am based out of, and our Natural Resource Management Division has been busy for the last 50 years establishing prairies in our parks. Because this parkland is mostly like old farm fields that are slowly being turned into rich prairies with high species diversity of plants, which then in turn leads to a diversity of insects, which then leads to a diversity of birds and mammals. So a healthy prairie is kind of the key to a lot of it, and it makes it
reptiles too, actually.
Reptiles too, thank you, yeah. It makes it for a pretty amazing place. We also have lots of wetlands and woods and stuff too. The park I work in is not exclusively prairie, but they're in the process of putting in even more prairie right now, turning some old fallow fields into prairie at my park, which is going to raise our total acreage to over 300 acres at my location.
Nice.
Which is
That's awesome.
I mean, that's great. It's not a ton compared to what there used to be, but it's not bad. Incidentally, it's going to start to look like a prairie within a few years, but I was talking to the biologists, and from their point of view, they won't really consider these new prairie areas to be an established prairie for another 50 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it is a long process. The public will see it and go, oh, it's so pretty. Look at the grasses and the flowers. But
look at that beautiful prairie.
Yeah, 50 years to really get going and established. Now, our park is already 50 years old. So by the time we're 100 years old, our prairies will be doing pretty well. It's pretty amazing to think about that long time scale some of these managers are working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll all be there at the reunion, so.
Right.
I sure hope so. I'll be a very old man, but I could do it. In the meantime, it's going to be a lot of work to maintain them because they're surrounded by trees, and trees spread their seeds, right? So if we were to just walk away from our prairies, they would pretty quickly disappear into forest. And traditionally, Minnesota is a really interesting place because we're right on the edge of a bunch of different biomes that all kind of intersect. And in this case, I work near the edge of the prairie biome and the big woods biome. And my work is technically probably more in the big woods than in the prairie. And so the trees really waste no opportunity to remind us of that. And they're constantly trying to take the prairie back over. So there's so little original prairie left in the state, though, that it's critically important that we preserve and plant species so we can preserve the plant and animal species that are important to that habitat and that biome. So one of the tools, or probably kind of the main tool we use to keep that biome in grass and forbs instead of trees, is the same one that nature and humans have used for thousands of years to manage prairie, and that is
fire.
Yeah, we use fire. Those are really fun days to be at work.
Yes.
They're so fun.
Yeah, most of the biomass
People get
of prairies,
so worried.
We get so many phone calls, yeah. Most of the biomass of prairies is underground in the roots. The roots of some species can go down 15 feet or more, and what's above ground dies off every winter. But this is very different than trees, who have the majority of their biomass above ground, and it has to survive year after year. So when fire comes through, it kills off the woody species, and it leaves the prairie species of the grasses and forbs unharmed. It also returns nutrients to the soil via ashes, and we have to burn our prairies about every 3 years in order to stop them from turning into forest. If it goes a little longer, it's fine, but 3 years is kind of the optimum cycle that we want to be on. So traditionally, fires were started by lightning, but also by humans. There's a long tradition of humans setting the prairies on fire. The Dakota, who were the first people here, they would traditionally set fire to prairies at the interface between the big woods and the prairie as a way of managing the productive grasslands and attracting animals like bison, further and further east. So basically, there's a very long relationship between humans, grasslands, and fire. And that's not what I want to talk about today, though. You would think the ability to use fire to manage the landscape would be a uniquely human trait. Indeed, using fire as a tool is one of the things that has been used to distinguish humans from other animals in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you
Yeah,
going?
I'm wondering where you're going with this.
Are you talking about fire salamanders? A question I get from children.
Enter the firehawk.
The firehawk?
The what?
This sounds like a legend. This sounds
like a phoenix. Did you hear my flamingo episode?
Yeah, well, we're going to get there. Now for this, we're going to travel down under to, you guessed it, Australia. That's right, the land that keeps on giving. Now just like here at home, where what I mentioned that the Dakota have traditionally used fire to manage prairies and attract bison. So too in Australia, the Aboriginal first humans to reside there also have a history of actively managing grasslands with fire, often to attract kangaroos for hunting. Interesting kind of parallel there. As such, they have a very deep indigenous ecological knowledge of fire and the land. And there are stories of what they call firehawks that play a role in a lot of the traditional stories, but also just in some of the traditional knowledge. And they talk about hawks who would come in and basically sometimes even steal branches from campfires so they could fly away with them and drop them into grasslands to set them ablaze. These stories have been out there for a really long time. The idea is that as wildfire spreads, it drives small mammals away at the fire front. And birds have learned that a fire front is a great place to hunt. And actually, scientists and people around the world. High
reward.
What's that?
High risk, high reward.
Not really high risk for the birds. I mean, they're flying above the fire. They can stay safe there, and they're just watching that area in front of it. A lot of grassland fires can often move fairly slowly, so it's not like they're going 20 miles an hour and you got to run away from them. Some of these are just these slow burning, bush fires that are coming through, and scientists and other people around the world have actually observed raptors specifically hunting at fire fronts. This is a thing that happens really around the world. Now, intentionally setting a fire though, that's really something else, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned this has been traditional knowledge for, countless generations going back. But like as has happened so many times in the past, when scientists heard these stories, they went, yeah, nah, that doesn't happen.
Right.
That's not a thing.
Let's just ignore all of that indigenous knowledge of people who have been there for thousands of years.
Absolutely. Yep. So these were either dismissed as mere story, or they were chalked up to accidental thing, which I could see. Basically, we know that raptors do hunt at the fire front, so it could be that they go down to catch something. They accidentally get a branch instead of a snake or something. They take off. And they go, oh, no, this is the branch. And, oh, gosh, it's on fire. And they drop it. And people saw that happening and go, oh, someone saw that happen. And that was not an intentional thing the birds were doing, right? Pretty dismissive of people who lived there for like 30,000 years or whatever, who have this knowledge of what's going on. So there was a team of researchers who really wanted to try to study this. And they were curious and wanted to actually dig into these stories. And they worked on both the anthropological side and the ornithological front and talked to people who live and work in Australia's grasslands. So they talked to ranchers, firefighters, land managers, many of whom actually also happened to be Aboriginal people living there. And they conducted these interviews trying to learn more about this phenomenon and make sure it wasn't just some sort of embellished story. Like science is big on documentation. Okay. So they wanted to talk to people who had witnessed these firsthand and see like, what could they find? Well, they published their findings in 2017 in the Journal of Ethnobiology. And what they discovered is that there simply is no such thing as a firehawk. In fact, there are 3 of them.
Oh, you buried the lead.
I was obfuscating.
Bait and switch.
So they were able to demonstrate that the behavior of purposely spreading fires for the purpose of hunting was an observed and repeated behavior of the 3 most common raptor species in the savanna grasslands of northern Australia. Now, to be kind of a nerdy pedant, technically none of them are hawks, but people get kind of fast and loose with that term hawk. 2 of them are kites, and 1 of them is a falcon. So the evidence of this practice of the black kite, the whistling kite, and the brown falcon. So 3 kinds of raptors. And I'm sure this is an area of study that will receive more research in the future. They did point out that it's a fairly rare behavior, although I will say one of the researchers themselves actually observed these raptors doing this behavior.
Awesome.
So
That's like, so cool.
There you go. I saw it myself. And they got a lot of really good like firsthand knowledge of people, and they kind of had to sort them by how reliable they thought the person was in the reporting, and was it firsthand or secondhand and whatnot, and get actual good data on what exactly did you see and how do we classify that. And it's like, was the bird repeatedly picking up sticks and seemingly intentionally drop it somewhere, or was it just sort of a random thing? And they really found that it seems like this is something not that goes on every day, but something the raptors in this area have definitely learned to do, and they will seemingly purposely set fires. And it's enough that it's actually a problem for land managers who are trying to put out fires, and they think they have it out, and then they're like, all right, we're done, and look over and they're like, where did that fire come from? Right there. They even
what happened?
Actually witnessed a fire get to a creek and kind of stop because it was a creek, and some raptors came down and picked up sticks and flew them across the creek and restarted the fire on the other side of the creek to keep it going because the creek had stopped the fire. So pretty amazing. It seems like sort of an
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's kind of an opportunistic behavior that is seen from time to time, at least by humans who spend a lot of time around these species and fire. So super cool.
That's amazing.
Raptors starting fires and helping to shape and manage the landscape. I just love the story. Nature truly is stranger than we imagine. My sources were the journal article. It's called Intentional Fire Spreading by Firehawk Raptors in Northern Australia. It was in the Journal of Ethnobotany, and also an article in Nature. And incidentally, the journal article is open access, so everyone can read it for free, which is how it should be. So awesome. Thank you, scientists.
Make science accessible.
Woo. So after that hot topic, we are going to take a little break. And when we come back, it will be Rachel.
In the spirit of horrifying and spooky things this month, let's take a walk or a hike in the potentially snowy boreal woods of Canada, maybe really, really northern Minnesota, Alaska, or if you'd like to get away from the States / Canada, we could go to the Nordic countries, like Norway, Sweden, or Finland, or even maybe northern Russia or in Siberia, which sounds less great. And as we're walking, we hear a snarl in the woods, like...
Oh my.
Can you do that again? That sounds scary.
No, that's probably terrible. Yeah. No, that's probably terrible. But it should sound scary. The noise obviously makes us pause in our hike. What do you think that might be that's making the noise?
Is it a Wolverine?
Yeah, it's a Wolverine.
What a guess. Wow.
The largest member of the Mustelidae. also known as the glutton, even in its scientific name, Gulo Gulo.
Gulo Gulo.
Victoria, you win a prize.
Yay!
There's actually two kinds of Wolverine. There's one that is found in Europe, which is Gulo Gulo Gulo. And then there's one in North America, which is Gulo Gulo Lucius, I believe
I
it was.
did not know.
I think I pronounced that correct.
Subspecies.
I really want
pronounced
a
that probably really
European
wrong.
subspecies called Gulo 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 Gulo.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. So the Wolverine is kind of known for being ferocious, so I thought, hey, why not talk about Wolverines for, a horror month. But I'm going to describe it just a little bit for everyone at home, just in case you have never seen a Wolverine, which, okay.
It's played by Hugh Jackman. Has claws
that one.
Oh,
really
wait,
cut.
Is that what we're not talking about?
Not that one. Not that Wolverine. No, not that one. Not the X-Men. No. So if you've ever seen a weasel or an otter, it has a similar body plan. So the family Mustelidae is actually the weasel family. So it's the Wolverine is the largest of all of the weasels.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a similar body plan to that of a weasel. It has a similar kind of head shape. It's just much bigger. It's generally pretty low to the ground, and it has like a wide head that's kind of flat on the top, but has little round ears and really small eyes. It has some pretty dark brown fur that sometimes has these stripes, and oftentimes they have like a little white spot on their chest.
They're cute.
It's got some. They're kind of cute looking. Yeah.
In a ferocious.
It's got some absolutely. It's got some really strong limbs that actually allow it to climb really effectively. Like, it's a good tree climber, which I don't like. And its claws, actually, because oftentimes it lives in the snowy tundra and the subarctic, they can work like crampons, which crampons are the metal parts on the bottom of snowshoes. Yeah. I also just love saying the word crampon, so it's fun that I could say it. So they work like that on snow and ice. Their claws are somewhat retractable, actually, which is crazy. They can be anywhere from 33 to 44 inches from head to tail, which is less than a Rachel. So awesome. And they can stand about 1.5 feet tall. They're pretty amazing creatures, and they're really adapted to survive the winter in some really, really harsh areas. One of those adaptations that they have is their fur. They have a double layer coat that allows them to keep warm and allows it to be a little bit looser. They have a pretty decent layer of fat on their body. So by having a little looser skin and by allowing them having this double layer coat, it allows them, if a predator like a wolf or a bear were to, or even a cougar were to attack a Wolverine, which they are known to do, it would give the Wolverine a fighting chance that they would be able to rear around and actually bite and try to attack the predator.
That makes perfect sense. I think if Hugh Jackman were to go into a bar, cougars would be just jumping on him. You know what I mean? So that would prove very useful.
Yeah, it would. Their double layer coat and the fact they are weasels, so they have some pretty significant musks and oils that they have. It actually is very hydrophobic. So it prevents frost from forming on the coat and also helps them be really effective swimmers. Or they're great swimmers.
I remember.
I also don't like
that tidbit about frost not forming on their coats. I forget what book or maybe several books I read this in. Probably it was Plan of the Cave Bear or something. But if you make a hood fringe out of Wolverine fur, it's not going to collect frost when you breathe on it.
Yep. It's actually one of
it's
the
gonna
reasons
smell
why
just
their
great.
populations. Oh, it's gonna smell terrible. But it's actually one of the reasons why their population went down so much in the 19th century is because, especially up in those areas, it made their fur made them very valuable for making coats and hats and things.
Interesting.
Yeah. So besides their fur, the other thing that is a really great adaptation for Wolverines is their teeth.
Okay.
The upper molars of a Wolverine are rotated 90 degrees. So like the biting surface of the molar, which is like your way back, your grinding teeth, what you use for like plant materials and things like that. Instead of it being, so picture it being a little like a longer, like a more like a rectangular type. Instead of it being like lengthwise, so the narrow end is in line with the rest of your teeth, this one, how they have it is the width. So the longer side is facing like toward, like from cheek to the roof of their mouth.
So it's like swiveled around, kind of?
Yeah, it's swiveled around 90 degrees.
Okay.
Oh, weird.
That is really weird.
Do we know why that's like that?
No, it's a characteristic of the family Mustelidae. But it does allow them to be more effective in crushing bones and tearing frozen meat off of a scavenger kill.
There you go.
Yeah.
So like, it's crazy.
They can, I suppose, yeah, if you're living in a really frozen place like that, and then you have the ability to like gnaw on some frozen thing, that's going to be useful to have something positioned like that. That's bizarre. I had no idea they were like that.
They must have very strong jaw muscles.
Yeah, if you're chewing on frozen stuff and bones.
I mean, generally speaking, yeah, they do have a pretty strong bite strength rather. A lot of people, when they think of Wolverines, they think of them having like the strongest bite strength in the world, and they really don't. The animals that have the strongest bite force is actually like the animals who grind like fibrous plants all day long. They have the strongest bite strength, which if you really, really think about it, makes sense because they're working their jaw all day long.
Yeah.
But Wolverine they still have a pretty strong bite. It's been measured to be about 50 psi or pounds per square inch, which is not bad, but not like
not as high as I thought it would be. Yeah.
Right? You think it would be stronger.
If having that different dentition helps, since it's actually not that strong of a bite, helps with that chewing. I actually just looked up to look for a picture to see what you were talking about, and I didn't realize that 90-degree rotated molar is an identifying characteristic for all the mustids. Like it's not just the weasels. That's really cool. Or not, sorry,
yeah, it's not just Wolverines. It's all the weasels.
All the weasels.
Yeah.
So like otters,
skunks,
weasels, minks, skunks.
Probably a lot
badgers.
More obvious in a Wolverine though, because their skulls are so big.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Compared to like a mink.
Well, they're the largest.
Yeah.
So any naturalists out there, go ahead and check out your weasel family teeth.
Yep.
They're the upper molars.
Run to the drawers.
Yeah.
Run to the drawer.
Contact us on social media if you don't find it.
Yeah. So, I mean, while they don't have necessarily the strongest bite force, like Wolverines are still very strong animals. Primarily, they like to be scavengers because that's easiest for them to be able to, utilize. And it's easier to find dead things and it takes less effort.
Frozen things, right?
Right. But because I talked about their fur earlier, they actually, in the wintertime, they do actually experience different coats in the summer and the winter. And in the winter, they get extra fur in between their like claws and such that allow them to be on top of the snow, which actually has allowed them they've been documented to take down lynx.
Oh, wow.
They've been documented to take down and eat caribou and other deer, which is much larger than them.
Yeah.
I suppose if you're going
generally
going after the sick ones and stuff, right?
They're going after the sick ones, the ones that are bogged in deep in snow and hard to because Wolverines can cruise through snow, like they can power through and be more on top of the snow because they're spreading their body weight out more. Whereas deer and other ungulates have a lot more, their weight is a lot more pinpointed directly on all of their foot. So it's a lot harder for them to be able to walk through snow. Generally speaking, they'll eat whatever they can get. So this also includes things like porcupines. So wolverines are actually one of the only known animals to eat porcupine.
Impressive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Rabbits, fish, berries, eggs, birds, whatever they can find, they will eat. And they will have actually been documented going as far as 18 miles in a day looking for food.
Woo.
That's far. Are there wolverines
that is far.
up by you?
I haven't seen any.
Well,
Probably.
I think historically speaking, yes,
okay.
there have been. I think currently, no.
Okay.
They really like a lot.
It's extremely
rocky
rare to see
and-
one in the state at all
Yeah.
at this point.
They are more found in Canada. The last one to be seen really in the contiguous 48 states, I think, was in Michigan, and that one was confirmed to be dead, I think, in either 2007 or 2014,
Yeah.
one of the two.
Which isn't
so-
there? Isn't there one of the states that has Wolverine as a nickname or some university?
Yeah, it's a sports team. That made it really fun when I was researching.
Yeah. Which
I think, yeah. I searched Wolverine and I got the sports team right away. So I was saying like they go as far as like 18 miles in a day to go for looking for food. These animals actually have huge home ranges. Like the females have a smaller home range, but it's still anywhere from 115 square miles to 500 square miles.
wow.
So males have a much larger range that overlaps with females, but females still have like at least a 200 miles or square mile range, and they'll hang out in
500
there
square miles. That is
500, and they traverse
that sink
that
in.
whole
That is-
room.
holy cow.
They
That's a big
Yeah.
range.
get moving.
It's huge. They
Yeah.
cruise, and they're always looking for food. They're pretty much known as being solitary animals, and again, that all really depends on like food availability. If food is plentiful, then they will get along with other wolverines more or less fine. But if food is, not plentiful, then they'll be more likely to attack other wolverines. As is with just about
Makes
any
sense.
like predator. Yeah, but wolverines, that's what I have for you all today.
Very
Crazy.
cool.
That's great. I love a Wolverine.
Yeah. They're so fun. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, we're back. All right, I have our final segment this week. I was on the Nextdoor app the other day.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Okay. Yeah, why?
I find it entertaining. If you're not
Okay.
familiar, if any of our readers
That's why
are,
I'm on Tumblr.
if you're not familiar with the app, it's a social media platform that connects you to other people in your neighborhood and nearby. And there are certain topics that are very frequent on Nextdoor, including lost and found pets, complaints about local road construction, stolen cars,
Of
Yeah.
course.
stolen packages, garage break-ins.
Mysterious people in
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. You never know. Where did they come from?
And there's a category I'll call, "What's that noise?"
That seems like my favorite category.
Usually
You
it's...
forgot one, though.
Oh, yeah, please.
You forgot the category of people swearing that the coyote they saw was a wolf.
Doesn't happen quite as much in the center of Minneapolis, but I'm sure out by you, yes.
When I lived in St. Paul, I had wolves walking
Okay.
down my alley regularly. So there's
I mean,
wolves in
up
the city. You just
where-
haven't seen them, or coyotes. I mean,
Well, I do know that.
I
That's true.
mean, Up where I am, I've heard wolf
Well, yes,
owls.
you do actually have wolves up where
Yeah,
you
okay,
are.
Rachel. In
That
all
is
fairness,
also
you guys,
true.
Rachel literally lives in the boreal forest. So yes, there are wolves walking
do.
around where you are.
Yeah.
Yep, found their scat.
Your
It was
next
fun.
door would be very different than one in a city.
Oh.
But with what's that noise? Usually it's was that gunshots or fireworks?
Of course.
But sometimes it's
Fair.
also what was that boom? um,
Right.
Okay.
and usually the most likely answer has to do with local road or building construction. But
Yep.
I was looking
Right.
at a post like this the other day, and somebody in the replies in the comments mentioned Seneca Guns as a source of mysterious booms in other parts of the country. And I
What?
I was like, what?
I've heard of
I had
that.
never heard of this. Seneca
I can't
Guns.
remember what
And
it
so
is.
I had to look into this. First off,
I'm nervous.
there are no guns.
Of course.
Yeah. First off, the
That
Seneca
would make too much sense, of course. Not.
the Seneca Guns is what they are called in the United States mostly, because it's named after Seneca Lake and Cayuga Lake, which is in the Finger Lakes region of New York State,
Okay.
where
Okay.
where this sound is known to occur. But they're also found off on the Carolina coast, northern Georgia, and Cedar Key in Florida, possibly other places. Who knows?
How to tell that you're a
Interesting.
transplant without
Yeah.
saying you're a transplant. Continue.
Right. What is it? Well,
Oh.
the Seneca Guns is a loud booming noise coming from the sky at a time when there is no thunder nearby nor any other seemingly plausible explanation for such a sound.
Interesting.
Yes. So usually it seems to occur near a large body of water, sometimes the ocean, sometimes a lake or a river. And
Uh-huh.
observers say it sounds nearly identical to cannon fire, hence the guns part of the name, or to distant
Right.
thunder.
Okay.
Sometimes it's strong enough to rattle windows and like shake knickknacks.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wow. All right.
but
all
not
right.
really to cause damage to buildings. So
Okay.
it turns out this phenomenon is not confined to the United States, but it's heard in various places throughout the world, including the Bay of Fundy in Atlantic Canada,
Ooh, I've been
Italy.
there.
Yeah, it's a cool place. Italy, the Netherlands, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Australia, many other places. Each of these countries has their own name for the phenomenon, or in the case of Italy, at least 12 different names, according to Wikipedia.
Awesome. all
That
right.
seems about right.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's fair.
They all sort of sounded like bomba, boom, dong, ding, dong, something like that.
A lot of onomatopoetic
Yes,
names.
very.
Right.
The general term apparently is a skyquake, which
Ooh.
also is the name of a
Interesting.
Transformers character, according
Nice.
to my research. I didn't know that off the top of my head, I'm just going to say.
Well, you do now.
I do now. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't know what this is. Here is a partial
What?
list. I know. Partial list of explanations that have been put forth at one time or another. Earthquakes or eruptions. Sonic booms from supersonic jets.
Okay. Yeah.
Meteorites exploding in the atmosphere.
Yep.
Okay.
Quarry blasts. And
Doesn't work where you might have heard it.
right?
Well, maybe. Okay.
Atmospheric temperature inversions leading to sounds traveling far from their origin.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and on the Wikipedia page there were some others listed that there were not cited, and I couldn't really find reference to anywhere else, so I'm not going to mention those. But one thing we know for sure is that supersonic jets are not the sole cause of this phenomenon, because it has been reported since at least the mid-19th century, possibly earlier.
Right. I was
illegal.
about to be
But
like,
Also, now it's illegal to fly jets supersonic over the U.S., so
Oh, I didn't know
you
that.
shouldn't be hearing it now at all. Yeah.
Well,
Huh.
yeah,
good to know.
just apparently James Fenimore Cooper, who was the author of Last of the Mohicans, wrote a short story about the Seneca Guns in 1850. So there's that data point. And in addition, the U.S. Geological Survey has examined seismological data from the time, like when people report booms, say in North Carolina, and then they look to see if any earthquakes have happened, and no.
Huh.
At least in that
has
location.
There been any like audio recordings to confirm, like, yep, we heard one here at this time, or is that no? It's all just sort of anecdotal.
My research didn't dig that deep. I should have looked for an audio recording. I didn't. None of them came up sort of.
Sure.
In what I was looking at, I'm sure somebody must have recorded it at some point.
By now, yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, the temperature inversion suggestion sounds the most promising to me. So the idea,
was the one I thought was most interesting,
and the coolest one.
Yeah,
it was an actual plausible explanation that wasn't just some guy was shooting off fireworks down the street. You know?
Right. So the idea is that especially over a body of water, a layer of colder air can get trapped under a layer of warmer air. And then these air layers can amplify sound and send it traveling further than it normally would go. So in theory, like there could be a thunderstorm that would be like way over the horizon where you couldn't see it. But because of the temperature inversion, the sound of the thunder, or, I mean, who knows, a quarry blast or supersonic jet or whatever, it was pretty far away, could travel a long distance.
Huh.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Most likely, all of these explanations have been true at one time or location or another. I mean, certainly,
Sure.
Okay.
There have been mysterious booms in the past that have been shown to be supersonic jets once people figured out what it was.
Right.
But in terms of, the best that the geologists and the atmospheric scientists come up with is that this is probably some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, not a geological phenomenon. It seems to be somewhat associated with water. So, the temperature inversion sounds plausible. Yes.
But we still don't know.
We don't know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love
I
those
hate it
mysteries.
when we don't
though.
know.
You still got to have some mystery in the world.
Yeah.
I will say
We have
one
several
thing
of those.
it reminded me of, though, is if you get curious about, like, ooh, do they have any sounds? Whatever you do, don't go on YouTube and type in, like, mysterious sky sounds, because you will get thousands of bogus videos. Like, for a while at least, I don't know if it's still going on, there was a really popular, like, genre of YouTube videos that were, like, people, like, looking at the sky, and then they, like, add sounds in later on and be like, I heard this crazy sound out in the woods. What is this? And it's like, it's you learning how to use editing software is what it is. But, like, people are gullible, and they're like, oh my gosh, there was, like, weird booms or strange noises coming from the sky. And you're like, nope, that's just people messing around. Like,
Yep.
Well, yep. There's a lot of junk out there. My source, speaking of junk, no, I'm just kidding. There were not. I couldn't find any like scientific articles about this, but my sources were an article from Coastal Review, which is a magazine by Carrie Pugh, 2020 article from Forbes magazine by David Brisson, and Wikipedia.
Awesome.
Fascinating. And we're getting closer and closer to
Victoria.
Halloween. A little bit spooky.
Yay.
We'll be bringing some spooky stuff to you for our special second annual Halloween episode coming up not too long.
Yeah. Gonna be fun.
All right.
Very
I think that's it for this week.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.